all set here. I'm going to click go live. Hey, Tiago, we're live on YouTube.
Hello, Tim. Such a pleasure to see you again, man.
Great to see you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining today. I was really excited to talk to you because last time we chatted, you told me about a really interesting approach you were engaged in, looking to grow your own profile and also help other people grow their presence or market their product or service. And I was wondering if you could maybe just start by talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think we since the last episode we recorded a while ago, a lot of things changed. A lot of things changed, and I told you about that. Basically, it was an experiment I've made last year,
Mm-hmm.
but it all started basically by me being extremely tired of creating content all the time for 5 years. And I told you about that. I
All
created
right.
my blog. I did a 90-day challenge on my blog
Mm-hmm.
many years ago to 90 days, 90 articles in 90 days. And then I did the same thing on YouTube,
Yeah.
120 in 120 days. And then I moved on to Facebook, doing lives, and then keeping a Facebook group, alive,
It's a lot.
and feeding it all the time with content. And I got really exhausted by it.
Yeah.
It's, the, the the effort of staring at a blank page and think, okay, I need to be creative now, or
Mm-hmm.
looking at a camera, how can I be interesting, and kind of, having to perform it. I started a bit, hating it a bit, a bit resenting it, and last year I basically burned out. I was,
Right.
okay, I can't do this every day all the time anymore.
Yeah.
So I started to recycle old content,
Mm-hmm.
and things at some point stopped working because people just
Right.
start seeing that you're just
Yeah.
reusing things, and one you try one thing, it works, and then the second time is never exactly the same. So
Mm-hmm.
started to struggle to get leads because I was not in
Mm-hmm.
that machine anymore. I was having to push people a lot, cold messaging all the time.
Right.
So things were getting a bit tighter, and
Mm-hmm.
reached the point where I was kind of in that valley of despair.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to grow. I needed to grow the business, but I just couldn't go back to that hustle and grind and
Right.
of creating content like a beast. So yeah, unpredictable months, money going away fast, sleepless
Yeah.
nights, starting every month from zero. So
Right.
at some point, my wife even said, "Tiago, maybe you should consider job as well. Maybe it's a good idea." But no, I couldn't. I just couldn't. I was. I am psychologically unemployable. I figured that out a while ago. But then the most amazing thing happened. So just before we went on holidays, we were going to visit the most random country in Europe, which is Georgia.
Hmm.
We had a
Right.
trip figured out, and then, before we were going, I received an email from one of my mentors. He has a new
Mm-hmm.
beta program open. It was totally aligned with me. There was, okay, no content. You don't need to create any content. Just good
Right.
old networking referrals. I told my wife, she agreed, maxed out the credit card. And in that program, that mentor told me that, okay, podcast guesting, being a
Right.
guest on other people's podcast is an amazing way to, increase your network,
Mm-hmm.
to create partnerships, referrals, the anti-marketing thing that I was talking to you about before.
All right.
And went all in. And in 4 months, I booked myself as a guest for 67 podcasts,
That's
which is
amazing.
insane. I don't
That's a
recommend
lot.
anyone. It's it's too much. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it was really good. It really created a lot of partnerships. It's amazing this connection we create with
Mm.
within the podcast host and the guest. Don't you think, Tim? It's like
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
being a
Like,
host allows you for all this.
definitely. I mean, a lot of things you said there resonated. Like, creating content on a continual basis. It definitely is a treadmill, and even if you have a good system to sustain it, it can be a lot, right? And if you're also trying to monetize, your audience at the same time, that's a whole
Yeah.
other stream of activities, and so it's a lot to sustain. So we need to find a strategic way to generate the leads, and then capitalize on the leads once you have them to do something with those leads, and all of that takes time. So that's why I thought this is very interesting, the idea of leveraging other people's credibility, other
audiences.
people's audience, other people's market. It's a great way. It's kind of takes some of that pressure off of you as a creator to, as you say, be the machine and generate those leads.
Exactly.
And I guess the question, a few questions that come up before we get into the benefits. I could see like one objection being like, you're okay. You're going on to somebody else's show. Aren't you drawing the audience to them? And so, what would you, and what do you do for your own, your own profile, your own, or how does it help your profile being on somebody else's
That's a
show?
great question. Totally,
Yeah.
totally makes sense. But I think it's a non-issue. It's absolutely a non-issue because first of all, you're having access to a new, completely new audience,
Right.
right? The host is exposing you to not only the podcast listeners that he has following him, but also his social media followers, because most of them publish on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them also send to their email list. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that start happening, and all those publishing on the social media, some of them put on their blog. So it all, and they redirect, some
Mm-hmm.
traffic to you because they put your website, they put your, so there's a lot of interconnections and a lot of
Right.
SEO juice also
Mm-hmm.
additional as a bonus that you get to your own website. So a lot of wins there. And of course, the fact that you show to your audience, your own audience, that look, I've been
Yeah.
featured on this awesome podcast. Look at me talking about what I know, and this person is putting me on a pedestal, and
Right.
and in the subconscious of people, you get that credibility, right? By
Yes.
how do you say it? By association, right? Association bias.
Right.
Yeah, because this person must know what she's talking about because she's being interviewed by someone.
Right. Right.
He has to be an expert on what he's talking about. So I don't see it as an issue that you put your audience and other people's. It's all. I love it because it's very abundant strategy. Everybody
Right.
wins basically.
Yeah.
There's no one that is in a disadvantage. The host wins because it gets free content, right? He's
Yep.
generating free content with the guests. Us as guests will get access to new audiences, which is awesome, and the listeners also get amazing content, which is created by two people. It's better than just one person. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
Napoleon
Absolutely.
Hill style masterminding. Yeah, I think that's a lot of wins there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's about being clear on your goals too. Like, is your goal to have, a channel with X number of subscribers, or are you trying to generate business? And if you're trying to generate business, then maybe you don't have to worry about the huge number of subscribers on your YouTube channel. You just need to get the leads. And so I think that's part of what, makes this such a good strategy for people monetizing. And you can, I think you can do a little bit of both. You can still have your own, channel and still guest on other people's
Yeah,
shows. And actually,
definitely.
one of the things I
And the
like
ideal is to
about it,
have
yeah,
both things active. Yeah, to be a guest
yeah,
on other people's podcasts, to have your own podcast. But then the benefit of it is that, like for me, the biggest benefit, and that's why I loved it so much, is that dream marketing scenario that
mm-hmm,
I mentioned, which is, so you're getting on these amazing podcasts, you're being interviewed, getting access to those new audiences, but at the same time, you're having the host is extracting content from you, right, through the
right,
questions, and it's usually your most authentic, most genuine content because you're not just staring at a camera trying to forcefully be awesome. You're chatting with a person interested
right,
in making you shine, etc. So it's a conversation. It's a very different way to create content. Much more pleasant, much more fun.
right,
And then that hour of interview you have. So instead of spending 1 hour, which a lot of people do, 1 hour trying to create a very cool Instagram reel
mm-hmm,
or 1 minute reel, you could
right,
spend that hour in an interview with someone and
yeah,
being extracted amazing content, your stories, your best content is being created there, and then you can leverage
mm-hmm,
leverage it to create multiple assets. It's amazing
absolutely,
things you can create out of one, 20 minutes, 45 minutes interview. You
mm,
can create the short videos like reels of interesting
yeah,
parts of the interview. You can use the transcript to edit it and create a blog post, make some audiograms about
mm-hmm,
with the audio parts, some quote cards. So
yeah,
it's a very fun way to create content because you're enjoying yourself, just having a chat, and then
right,
all the things are done. You just have to edit some things and multiply.
yeah.
And that's basically how I help also my clients to get to that fun part of marketing, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's speaking of stories. What
Mhm.
would you say are like some of the things that you learned going through this process, like approaching different people to get guests to be a guest on their show? Because I think the benefits are clear, but what some people might not be clear on is like, oh, how do I even start to go about this, and what did you learn through the process of being booked on so many shows?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a an adventure, and I did all the mistakes possible. I and I learned a lot through doing all those mistakes. But at the same time, I learned a lot by talking with to the hosts, because I
Hmm.
would stay chatting with them after interview, doing
Yeah.
pre-interview chats, and I was always very curious, always asking questions, and many hosts even kind of coached me.
Hmm.
I was for example, there was a lady, I was having a pre-interview chat with her, and I was obviously not prepared for her. It was a big podcast, and then she said, "Tiago, stop. Can I give you a piece of feedback? Just giving advice, just sharing information.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you stand out from the pack. You need
Hmm.
to tell your story in an original,
Right.
connecting way. You need to have your own proprietary framework.
Hmm.
You need to position yourself as a unique. You have a unique proposition, something that
Right.
makes you stand out from the pack, and so that stayed on my mind. And I started, okay, how
Yes.
can I do this? How can I craft my message in a way that resonates to people?
Hmm.
And so yeah, I started creating my own framework, my own,
Hmm.
which is the dream method. Like, we can talk about it later.
Sure.
And that's why I help my clients also. Okay, let's take everything you do to your
Hmm.
people. Let's make it as a process, a step-by-step process,
Right.
and let's brand it in a way that it's unique to you. It's no
Hmm.
one else has it. Nobody can Google it, and that is immediately a wow factor for hosts and for
Yeah.
listeners, because it makes you different. You're not just another career coach, for example.
Right.
You're the
Right.
guy that has the path method that that's a very important piece of it if you want to really succeed as a guest. And the other important
Mm.
piece is the story, like you said,
Right.
your origin story. What brought you to this business that you're in, right?
Hmm.
And you have to tell your story in a way that, not in a boring way, like all of us tend to do, I don't know,
Right.
naturally, which is just tell a bunch of facts about our life, like, I studied
Right.
here, I did this thing, I worked here. That's boring for people. We need to tell our story in a way that resonates, that connects with the audience. They
That's a
need to
great
feel
point.
that we understand them. And I love to use the hero's journey,
Yeah.
framework, basically, to go through, like, how it was my life before, how I found this
Right.
thing. So yeah, it's those two things are crucial if you want to succeed in this area.
It can be a lot more challenging to tell your story that way because you got to talk about challenges and struggles, and I think there's this natural tendency, we want to present ourselves as the expert, and it's like we had it all
Yeah,
figured out. We had this
it's a
idea and it
natural
worked
tendency.
perfectly.
Yeah. Activate
But
the
that's
teaching
not.
mode all the time. Yeah, you should do
Yeah.
this. But that's all
But
of us did it. I also did that in my YouTube
yeah,
20
yeah.
120-day challenge, and of course it doesn't make you stand out. You're just
Right.
another parrot sharing
Yes.
information in
Yeah.
a sea of information that people are already flooded with,
And
and struggling to find a
absolutely.
connection, right? And that's what we should be doing on a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially with AI now, it's like it's so important to have that connection with people who are in your audience, or if you're on somebody else's show, to be connecting with their audience, because it's now like information is so freely available. It's just out
People are
there.
really
So
thirsty for human, genuine,
yeah.
thoughtful connections, and the easiest way for everyone is just to be honest. Just, okay, tell your story. Of course, it cannot be just a random story. It cannot be. You need to think a bit strategically about it, and find those kind of hooks. Like, what brought you to this idea? Did you
Right.
meet a mentor? Did you read a book? Did you something sparked something? Did you connect two different skills to create this
Hmm.
thing that you? Because we tend to not think about how we got where we are, but
Right.
if we sit down and, okay, let's go back chronologically. What happened that led me to this step, and what led me to this step?
Hmm.
And if you follow the framework, the hero's journey, it forces you to to tell your story in an interesting way, that
Right.
adds some drama. Yeah, because people just spend hours and hours on Netflix and
That's
watching
right.
series, movies. People love this kind of drama, problem to solution, and
Mm-hmm.
to the call to adventure. The meeting of the mentor.
Right.
All that hero journey is basically what people love to see, and Hollywood is
It's a
what it is because
classic
of that, right?
classic archetype, and then I think it helps people
Yes,
think, oh, maybe I can do that too. Like Tiago did it or Tim did it, and I see how they
he's
did
been
it.
through it.
Yeah,
He found a solution, and now he's bringing back the elixir to help
yeah,
others. Um, yeah, and I love to work on that process with my clients. Many of them say, "I don't have something interesting to share," but
mm-hmm.
there's always is something to dig up, like a
Yeah,
conversation that you had with a person that sparked this thing, and then it led to this, and it's a very interesting process, and it's super useful for not only for podcast
mm-hmm.
guesting. It's then you have a story that is engaging, compelling to tell in other presentations, public
Yeah,
events, on your webinars, on any kind of content you start creating.
yeah.
It's really good.
So let's say people are ready. They want to reach out to shows. Like, how did you pick what kind of shows you're gonna appear on, and like what kind of principle did you apply in terms of determining these are the shows? Like, did you say, oh, I'm gonna go for some big ones, I'm gonna go for some medium ones, and some smaller
Yeah.
ones, or did you just maybe when you start out you kind of sometimes the dream is like I just want to be booked on some huge shows and swing for the
Yeah, that's
fences
the
like
natural tendency. Many clients tell me, "Oh, what about Joe Rogan?" It's like, come on, man. That's the top 0.000.1%
right.
podcast. It's unthinkable to do that way. I think before that, the first exercise is okay. Let's think who is our target audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
where are they? What are they listening to? And what kind of podcast types could we be aiming at that we know that our audience would be?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be direct like imagine you help men that are struggling in their relationship. You can go
Mm-hmm.
not only on relationship podcasts, but you also can go on man podcast, generic
Right.
man development, man living, whatever. And you can also go to women podcasts to talk about how men think and how
Mm-hmm.
what the problems that men go through. There's always indirect connections that you can think about. So that's the first brainstorm you should do. Like what kind of podcast types that I should be
Yeah.
aiming at. And then in terms of sizes, yes, if you've never been on any podcasts, it's very hard to go to the top,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3% podcasts. They would always ask, so show me some examples
Right.
of you in action, right? And so what I tend to do with my clients is, okay, let's aim at top 5 to 10%
Right.
podcasts. This percentage is from listennotes.com,
Mm-hmm.
by the way. It's like the biggest
Okay.
search engine of podcasts. And it means top 5% out of more than 3 million podcasts.
Right.
It shows you kind of the size of it. By the way, there's no available data on exact listenership or downloads.
Right.
It's not publicly available anywhere. Only the hosts know it. But you have like a kind of an idea,
Yeah.
how many reviews that podcast has, the followers, the social media
Right.
following, etc. But yeah, I like to aim for first at the top 5 to 10%. And once you start getting some momentum,
Mm-hmm.
some 2, 3, 4 podcasts where I already have a portfolio, and then we
Right.
can show to bigger hosts, look, I've been on these 2, 3 awesome podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about this awesome topic that will add value to your audience.
Right.
And yeah, that's the structure. And we can talk about how to approach hosts if you want later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It sounds like that's a natural segue there in terms of like talking about what are you going to bring to the table, and I think it's kind of well, there are a couple of mistakes I see as the host with people approach. One is that they don't seem to. Some of them don't seem to look at what your show's about. They're just spamming a lot of shows and reaching out, and they're on a totally different, unrelated topic. And then others are, just not having that clear value proposition of like, okay, why would you be a good guest on the show? Because it takes a lot of effort to produce a show, right? As the host, you know that from your own experience, and you can
Yes, yes.
only if you're got a show and you only are doing 12 to 20 episodes per year, let's say, you have to be, and about half of those are guest interviews. You have to be then start to be really strategic about, okay, who am I gonna actually have on the show to fill one of those precious slots. So
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
good. Hopefully, good mindset for people to think about.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You're completely right. And yeah, the connection with the host is it has to be done in a way that attracts their attention at first.
Hmm.
Okay, this is something new, different, and that makes you stand out. Because most people that adventure on this like podcast outreach, right? Like try to be on
Right.
podcasts, or even many agencies, booking agencies that basically just spam hosts
Right.
and it's just bet on numbers and that's it. Most people just talk about themselves, like, oh, I'm this awesome person, I do this, this
Hmm.
is cool, and the reality is that it's actually not about us. It's about the host. It's about
Yeah.
how can we add value to their lives, to their audience, to their podcast? How can we help them grow? And how can we create a kind of a connection with them to not be just
Hmm.
another spammer,
Right.
right? So in that pitching, so of course I have my own process of outreach, and
Hmm.
first of all I like to have different emails. It cannot be
Hmm.
just a very formal look. I'm da, 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 da.
Hmm.
That's already just goes to spam folders and people
Right.
they ignore it. It has to be have some personality in it. So I like to be very
Right.
fun in those emails.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest secrets is to create a connection is to actually listen to a bit of an
Right.
episode, at least 5 to 10 minutes. You can
Yeah.
listen to it in accelerated mode, and find something interesting about that episode,
Hmm.
and put that in an email. Look, I really liked
Hmm.
when you guys talked about this thing, and then add another comment about how it impacted you. How did it make you
Yeah.
feel? Like it really made me feel like, or made me think that X. So it kind of shows the host that you actually care, that you
Yeah.
took the time to listen to a bit at least, and that's what hosts also want. Everybody's thirsty, like I said, for human, genuine connections. And then of course
Absolutely.
you also show how you would add value to their audience, how,
Right.
how your knowledge and expertise could be a good value add
Yeah.
to the show. And basically that's it. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just
Hmm.
be genuine, be authentic, make something, use your personality, show that you
Yeah.
care, that you listened, and then show how you would add value to,
Yeah.
to, to the podcast host. And yeah, and then of course, a very
Hmm.
important thing is to follow up. Because most people, they read the
Yeah.
email or they're in an event or they're doing something else and they forget about it.
That's right.
So it's important to keep in touch. But again, not spamming, but
Yeah.
like sending fun emails, sending like something soft, like, hey, just thinking about you. I was just looking at this podcast and then I thought
Yeah.
about you, the email, something like that. But and yeah, that's basically the secret sauce
That's good.
to get
Yeah.
booked.
No, that's a good tip about the follow up because people are inundated by emails, and it might not even be that they haven't thought about. It might be that they just haven't made a decision yet, right? They saw the original email and they're like, I don't know. I'm thinking about a lot of different, potential guests, and I've got these other things on the go, and you kind of forget about it, and then when you get the follow up, it's like, oh yeah, and then there's like more likely to prompt action because then you also see,
I literally every week I get an answer from a host saying,
yeah,
"Oh, Tiago, thank you for following up because
yeah,
I was at an event. I looked at your email,
that's right.
intended to follow up, answer that day, but then I forgot. So life just goes
That's
goes on.
right.
People are highly distracted, highly busy, so it's
And
uh,
it
it's
it
it's a
shows that
natural
you've
thing
got a
that we should do.
commitment too. Like, okay, if I follow through with this person, they're probably it seems like they're committed, they're interested, that they're
Yes.
going to
I also
also
got that
follow
comment
through.
many times. Thank you for the tenacity. I can see you
Yes.
really want this, so let's have a pre-chat.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. So we're thinking about get those big shows. Do you have any particular tips that okay, we've got our portfolio, and we've got kind of a message that we're gonna use to deliver. What's the next step? What's the next level? Or is it the same approach really that you use with any show to approach them?
Yeah, it would be kind of similar approach now with a add-on. Look, I've been featured on these awesome
Yeah.
podcasts. You can see me in action. That's one thing. But the other big
Hmm.
thing that most people forget to do and which I love, like, because we talked about this in my previous interview with you, the referral strategy, and the thing is to once you get booked, don't forget to ask for, hey, do you know anyone else who I would
Oh,
where I would be a good fit in their podcast, and
it's a good
in
idea.
that way you get introductions to
Right.
sometimes big podcasts, and it's different when you're referred, by
Yes.
someone than when you just coldly appreciate
Totally.
that person. So it starts adding up, the snowball starts growing, people start helping you,
Right.
we all need people to succeed. I learned it the hard way that being a lone wolf doesn't get you anywhere. This is all a business of relationships.
Yeah.
I became basically a relationship broker. That's my
Mm-hmm.
business nowadays. To book my clients, to book for myself, yeah, it's
Yeah.
all about this. But you have to remember to do it, right? So in every
Yeah.
single
Yeah.
interaction, hey, do you know anyone who'd be a good fit for me,
Yeah.
or even for clients? After a podcast host sees you in action, knows you, likes
Mm-hmm.
you, trusts you. It's a great. And if you really click with that person, why not ask, hey, do you know anyone who'd be
Absolutely.
interested in working with me? Like I could help in some way.
Right.
It's a super strategy
Yeah. No,
that
that's
most people
that's
forget.
great. And yeah, I'm gonna um, just before we get to the question about your system, one other question I had is like when you're working with these shows, um, have you started or do you broach the question of how is the host going to promote it, or do you talk about how you're going to promote it as kind of a bridge to that, or do you just not bring it up?
No, no, definitely bring it up.
Yeah.
It's important to give signals to the host that you are going to be a partner. You're going to be
Right.
doing everything to promote the podcast, the
Mm-hmm.
episode. And I definitely do that. Even before we record it, I immediately
Yeah.
ask, hey, would it be possible for you to send me the raw video file? Because I would love to start creating some,
Right.
anticipation posts,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
short videos, and direct tagging you and redirecting you
Mm-hmm.
to your podcast. And most podcast hosts will like, yeah, please do.
Right. Yeah.
Any free
Absolutely.
promotion is amazing. So it starts creating goodwill. You start nurturing
Yeah.
that relationship in that sense, which opens up so many doors. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's important for you to be proactive and look, I'm here to help you promote the podcast. I
Yeah.
want to make you
That's good.
succeed, shine, etc. So because as you said, it's a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
to be a host.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, unpaid most of the times work. And if you show up as something that like someone with that attitude, they were like, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, you came from the sky. You're gonna really help me." And
Exactly. Yeah,
so it's
I
super
want to
important.
mention that because I think that was one of the gaps when I first started out was I'd be so grateful to get a guest, which is fine, you're just starting out, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
ask like, oh, how are we going to work together to promote this? And I think that's kind of the next step I'm looking to integrate a little
Yes.
more to maximize the value because
By the way, I was telling my story originally, and
mm-hmm.
the most amazing thing happened when I started getting bookings, right?
Yeah,
Which was that one host sent me an email. Okay, the podcast
right.
is live. Here it is. By the way, here are also 5 short videos that you can
Oh,
use to promote on your
yeah,
own social media. And I was like, oh my God,
good
this is
idea.
free content created for me through
Free
the
cut.
interview. Like
Who
that's
doesn't
why
want
the
that?
idea of that's where I got the idea of okay,
Yeah,
this is the dream marketing scenario, right? Had an
yeah,
interview and now I have a lot of assets to share with my audience. Oh my God,
right.
I don't need to create videos anymore. I am gonna stop creating videos. I'm just gonna do interviews, and that's basically what I'm doing, and I'm how I'm helping my clients as well.
Yeah.
So
So how do you help clients that are looking to go on onto podcasts?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's just through the dream method that I mentioned to you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
5 little steps. The first step of the D is design. So this
Mm-hmm.
is where I help them position themselves as amazing guests to
Right.
become easy yeses for me. That's first
Right.
of all, and to start booking them in the most relevant podcast for the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So and most people just give a lot of advice, right? Or share
Yeah.
information. Don't stand out, like I said. Just share expert your just give advice, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's important. That's why I spend 2-3 weeks with my clients looking at their hook, what makes them different, what makes them stand out, getting their proprietary framework up and
Right.
running, and yeah, and then also looking at what kind of podcasts should we be aiming at, like what
Mm-hmm.
is our strategy, their media one sheet prepared to stand
Right.
out from the pack again. So yeah, this is the first step is basically the preparation,
Mm-hmm.
and then we go to the second step, which is refine, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
I help my clients get confidence in their and
Right.
clarity in their messaging, so it actually resonates with the target audience. Okay, it's super important that you have
Mm-hmm.
your origin story prepared strategically in a way that actually connects with the
Right.
with listeners. So you don't share just a bunch of boring facts of your life. Nobody cares without any connection. So we need to work on that.
Yeah.
It's very very important. And then the third step is the engage part. Okay, so this is where
Mm-hmm.
all on me. So I connect with the hosts
Right.
in a way that attracts their attention, makes my clients stand out, positions them as awesome experts with slight touch of curiosity,
Yeah.
with a hook, like that makes them, well, okay, anti-marketing, what is this? I need to know more about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do it all I have my process of pitching in an abundant,
Mm-hmm.
positive way, like I explained to you, the follow-up,
Right.
and I start booking my clients. And then the fourth phase
Mm-hmm.
is the attract, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
you have to attract your dream clients to your world after you go on those podcasts,
Right.
because most people have just pointless conversations with no logical next step at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I help my clients to create the call to action, right? The final call to
Yes.
action at the end, which has to be super compelling because
Yes.
podcast listeners they're doing multiple things at the same time, right?
Right.
At the gym, the grocery shop. So we need to have a very compelling next step to make them take up the phone, type the link, get in
Right.
touch with us. And I love to help my clients to craft irresistible offers, something that
Mm-hmm.
the logical next step that they cannot wait to download it or to
Right.
contact with you. So we spend a lot of time on that call to action. And then finally, the last step is where I think I'm adding the most value is the
Mm-hmm.
multiply step, which is leveraging multiple
Hmm.
marketing assets out of each episode that my clients go on,
Hmm.
even before they go live. Okay, that's the idea.
Right.
I start promoting. I give them free content, like
Right.
5 to 10 short videos, reels,
Mm-hmm.
and then even before it goes live, you already have a lot of material.
Right.
You're giving credit to the host, the relationship that will be improved very fast. You can create a
Mm-hmm.
great relationship and partnerships with the host. Because yeah, most people, from the interviews you've had before, most people get on an interview and then forget about
Yeah.
it, right? They never talk
Mm-hmm.
to you again, never do any kind of promotion or anything. But that period is probably the most profitable that
Right.
there is, between the recording and the publishing.
Yeah.
So I help
Absolutely.
my clients to do um, like anticipation posts, like I
Mm-hmm.
was featured on Tim's podcast. It's gonna be awesome. Can't wait to share with you guys. Share with them reels. Always giving credit to the host,
Yeah.
nurturing relationship with the host. I have a huge checklist of what to do before, during, after
Mm-hmm.
with the hosts. And yeah, this is my how I work with my clients to get to that dream
Right.
marketing scenario.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, one of the things that I think is so important is you talked about the preparation and having what's your key message and then what's the action you want to take, like the irresistible offer, because I do see that a lot on podcast, podcast guests. They go on to shows, but they don't have a purpose. So really, really, in a way, you are then just
Yeah.
helping the host. You're being a guest, providing free content, and then you
Yeah,
kind
I
of
did that mistake
yeah.
at the beginning. I was follow
Yeah.
me on social media. I don't know, something like that. I don't
You
care.
gotta have a landing page and a reason to visit it, right? And
Yes.
hopefully a compelling reason to convert people. And it's just like social media. People do it all the time, where it's like tons of content, lead generation leading to no lead conversion system. So I
Absolutely,
love I
absolutely. You
love
need to
that
have
about it.
something
Yeah.
to add value. Yeah.
Yeah, to add value, and then the post show promotion, another gap I think that exists that a lot of people don't, especially guests don't necessarily promote the show afterwards, and it's fine. Sometimes that's not
I bet you
part of the agreement, but you
rarely.
just
What's the percentage of people that actually go back to you and help you promote the episode? Is
yeah, it's pretty small usually,
very small.
across shows, but I think it's just that they kind of one thing we don't talk about it before, like I said, that I think that was a gap in my process. Something I'll add as people are asking about being on the show, like, okay, how are we going to promote it afterwards? Just talk about it pre-talk, so that not to necessarily hold people to it, but kind of letting them know that that's part of the maybe part of the expectation or part of the hope.
Silent deal.
Yeah, and the other part is to just getting the most out of it, like leveraging the most effort. Okay, even if you've just been a guest for an hour and that was an hour of your time, as the guest, how do you don't you want to leverage that in terms of like, okay, I was on this podcast and it got me credibility, and you know and help help spread the help maximize the value for you, because if you direct people to that show, and I think that's why people don't do it, is because they don't have that clear message that was embedded in the show. So if you have that clear message embedded, then you'll want to direct people back, because they'll listen and they'll be like, oh yeah, Tiago's got this great system, and then I want to, it generates a lead. And the good thing about podcasts is that a lot of the people that are the audience of a podcast are highly engaged, right? They're willing to listen to this person's show for 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So they're more likely to click links. They're more likely to take recommendations from the host, and I think that's the other reason it can be a good venue.
Tim, that's a great point. The podcast listeners are a different breed,
right.
Much like book readers. They like to go deep. They go to analyze. They like to. They're more implementing. They implement more the things that after you as a coach, etc. Ask them to do, and also there's lots of studies that prove that they have higher income. Average income. Yeah. And they're being validated. You're being validated by the host that is giving you credibility, borrowing your credibility.
Right.
That's absolutely a great point. And
it's
also a dream.
The income part of it, I wanted to mention too, is that like one of the things about the strategy you're talking about is it does take a lot of time, probably more time than people realize, especially with the preparation of the message, the research about the shows, the booking, the pre-show calls, all of that goes into it. It does take time, and so if you pursue this yourself, you probably, if you don't have a lot of time, you have to do it at a fairly low level. And if you want to go in on it, but you don't have the time, then you probably have to spend some money, because that it's labor or capital. It's one or the other that you can invest, right? And the most, I'm finding one of the biggest things with, with content creation, people are talking more about, approaching it as a business, so that, if you don't have the labor, but you do have capital, you kind of have the answer to your question of how to solve the time deficit problem, is to get somebody else to help you with certain things. Because there's nothing worse than when you're applying a strategy like that, but then, as we're saying, you don't have the ability to leverage it. It's like one thing to have the right strategy, but it's another thing to have the resources to leverage it properly. And I think that's what's so useful about like service like this.
It's possible to do it on your own. Absolutely, I did it during the 4-month blitz. I booked 67, but they're still being recorded. Was last year.
Still rolling out.
Still rolling out, but basically I didn't do anything else during those 4 months. Right, I was almost full time pitching, listening. It's a lot of work. Yes, it's possible to do it, but if you really want scale and preparation, and it's a good idea to start outsourcing, and that's where I jump in.
Any tips for beginners that want to get going on this?
So I think the most important is the prep stage, like we mentioned. Like, make sure you have a message to share. You have to be, and it has to be something a bit unique. You cannot just be sharing information again that any person could be sharing. You have to think of ways to package it in an interesting, compelling, curiosity-inducing way, because that's what will attract the attention of hosts and also of the listeners. They will be super intrigued about it. And remember to. The natural tendencies, everyone has this, to just teach all the time, right? Do this, do that, how to, but that's absolutely a trap. Unfortunately, it's a natural tendency, but it's a trap, and but the more stories you tell,
Right.
the more you sell. It's basically it's instead of telling,
Yeah.
you should be storytelling, and wrapping your advice and tips always in some sort of your origin story,
Right.
stories of clients, because basically that's what creates connection with people and makes you stand out, makes you unique, right?
Yeah.
So I think those two things would be. I would have loved to know this before I started my blitz last year. But it makes total difference. It makes your life easier, both in terms of capturing attention of hosts and also of attracting leads from listeners. So.
Well, thanks very much, Tiago. Appreciate you taking the time to share this today. How do people get in touch with you if they're interested?
Nowadays, I'm basically only on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
I'll share with you you can search for Tiago Faria on LinkedIn. And I have there a surprise for your listeners. So if you go to, I have a unique link that goes directly to a specific post on my LinkedIn where I share
Okay.
like worksheets on how to create this, what we talked about today,
Awesome.
the origin story,
Yeah.
and your proprietary framework, how to turn your knowledge into something unique. So I have all those worksheets there, and just go to tiagofaria.pt /gift. Okay, it goes to
Okay.
that post on
Excellent.
LinkedIn, and you can have a chat there, and I can share with you everything.
Excellent. I'll look forward to checking that out. And thanks again for being on the show, Tiago. It was great to spend a bit of time with you today.
Thank God we made it happen, Tim.
You
It's
made
been
it
a while in
happen.
the work, but it was great to see you again. Thank you so much.
Tenacity, right?
Tenacity always works.
Take care.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.